everyone, my name is Tiffany and this is my channel, Who's Your Handmade. Thank you so much for stopping by today. Today's video is episode 2 of Sewing with Knits. Today we're talking about the tools that you need for success when sewing with knit fabric. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around. If you are new to my channel, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I hope that you will consider subscribing before you leave. I would love to welcome you into the sewing community. Thank you so much to each one of my friends who are tuning in again today. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to spend a little bit of it with me. It means so very much to me. Give this video a thumbs up if you like this kind of content and leave a comment down below. I would love to know what your favorite notions are for sewing with knit fabric. What is your go-tos and what is just kind of nice to have around if you need it? That's what we're going to talk about today. This is my knit sewing series. So this is episode 2 of it. Episode 1 I will link up above and down below. And that was my intro to this series. This is going to be a months long series where I just sit here with you and chat about knit fabric. I love sewing with knit fabric. It's near and dear to my heart. In the 2 years that I have been sewing, it's become my favorite. It's become my go-to. I will gravitate to a knit project before a woven one any day of the week. So what I want to do with this series, and I talked about this in the first video at length, is that I want to inspire you. I want to let you know that sewing with knits is not out of your reach. It's something that you can do. I want to empower you to go out there and pick up a knit project and give it a try. Practice makes better. I'm not going to say that practice makes perfect. Are any of us perfect? And who would want a perfect make anyway? It's a reason that we're sewing for ourselves. Art is not meant to be perfect. It's supposed to be appreciated for the creativity that it does have. So practice doesn't make perfect, but practice does help you. It makes a difference. Just getting in there, picking up a knit project and taking off with it. So today's video is about the tools that I have discovered that I use for success with sewing with knit fabric. Let me tell you, I stumbled and fell a lot of times. So there was a lot of trial and error in my knit fabric journey, and I'm going to share with you guys today what has really helped my journey. Now, some of these you might not like for yourself. Some of these you might use, try it out, and it doesn't work for you, and that's totally fine. What I can do is give you my experiences, right? Now, I'm not the end-all, be-all. I am not an expert. I'm not going to call myself an expert on knit fabric. What I have done is sewn a lot of it. So I'm going to give you my experiences, and hopefully you can glean maybe some suggestions, tips for success that you might want to try in your own sewing. So I have 2 categories today. I have notions that are a must, like I literally use these every single time I sew with knit fabric. And then I have a smaller category of a few things that are helpful. The few things on that list are not going to keep me from sewing with knit fabric, as opposed to the first category that I'm going to share with you, and that is I am going to have these with me. These are what I'm using in every single project. So let's get started with the category that is necessary to me and I am going to be using every single time I work on a knit project. These are not necessarily in any order. I've kind of put them in the order that they would pop up in my project process, in the process of making a knit garment. So the first thing that I'm going to show you on this list are these heavy big washers. Just found these at my local Rural King. I think any hardware store should have some kind of big washer like this. That's where I picked these up. I haven't even wrapped mine. Some people like to wrap them in fabric or do something to make them pretty, but I haven't even done that. So these are just the washer that I picked up at my hardware store. So why am I using these? Why do I use these heavy washers? These are heavy, and that is the point. I need them to have a weight to them so that when I go to cut out my knit fabric, which a lot of the times likes to be slinky, it likes to move around, sometimes it's hard to cut out because it's trying to shift on you. I will use these heavy washers copiously, use a lot of them, Put them everywhere on your pattern piece and hold that fabric down, and it really will make a huge difference in getting your fabric to stay in place. On the theme of cutting, the next thing that I would never be without when I was cutting out knit fabric is a rotary cutter. So this is my 45mm Olfa blade. Olfa is my brand, personally the one that I love to use, and this right here, this tool, I would not be cutting out knit fabric without it. I would never be using my regular scissors because, again, knit fabric loves to shift. So when you're cutting with scissors, when you're making the cutting motion, your fabric is going to be moving with the motion of the scissors. Whereas when you're cutting with your rotary cutter, putting the blade down here, and you're cutting, you're gliding through the fabric, and that fabric is not moving. That's the point you want to make. The knit fabric, it's so important that it doesn't shift, because if it does, it's going to change the shape of the garment you're cutting out, and it's going to totally affect the overall look of your outfit. So I highly recommend getting a rotary cutter. If you don't have practice with a rotary cutter, start small. Start on some cotton fabric. Don't start out on knit. Practice with your rotary cutter, cutting out a square or cutting out a triangle with cotton fabric. Use your rotary cutter. Get accustomed to it if you can. It will make your life a lot easier with knit fabric. The next notion that I would not be without is these extra fine needles. So this is a brand new case of them. Let's see what the actual title is. Extra fine glass head pins. I found these at Walmart. They can be very inexpensive, but boy, let me tell you, they make a difference. So it is so important to have a very sharp, fine, tipped stick pin when you're pinning together knit fabric, because if you use a more dull, thicker stick needle, sometimes your fabric will catch and pull, and it can kind of tear up your fabric. So the more fine point your pins are, the better it'll be for your overall fabric. These work the best. I've tried others. I've tried fancy ones, and I come back to these every time. These ones that I can find from Dritz at Walmart for $3 or $4. These are the ones that I love. On the theme of needles or stick pins, your stretch needles are very important. It is very, very important that you change your needle when you're working with different types of fabrics. I would highly suggest looking up the Schmetz website. I think they actually even have an app now that can show you the different types of needles. They can show you the different uses. It is just so important to have the right kind of needle in your machine when you're working with different kinds of fabric, and especially for knit fabric. So this is what I use. These are the Schmetz stretch needles. They're 7511s. They're very fine at the end. They're going to punch through the fabric and make a seam without tearing up the fabric, and it's going to be really smooth. These are the ones I use. There's like Microtex needles out there that you can use. There's jersey needles. Again, those are made for knit fabric, so those might be more to your tune. Give them a try. You don't know unless you try. So what I like for my baby lock is these stretch needles. Bottom line, make sure your needle is matching the fabric that you're using, especially in the case of knit fabric. The next thing I'm going to show you is probably the hidden secret of knit fabric sewing. It's one of those professional tips that makes a world of difference for your knit sewing game, and that is your walking foot. Now, this is the walking foot from my Baby Lock Crescendo. It's a big old guy. Yours might not be this big for your machine. I have one for a brother machine that I have, my very first sewing machine, and it's quite a bit smaller, but by and large, they look something like this. They are called a walking foot, and mine came with my machine. Yours may not have come with a walking foot, so go out there, do your research, find you one. I'm telling you that this foot for your machine will make a world of difference in your knit sewing game. The most publicity a walking foot gets is for quilting, and that might be something misleading that you've heard before, that a walking foot's only made for quilting. And while that is a big job of a walking foot, and that's probably what it was originally created for, the use of it with knit fabric is just as important. So what a walking foot helps you do is it helps you control the feed dogs. Feed dogs are down in here, in this part of your machine. They're underneath your foot. What's helping move your fabric through the machine. So I know we're guiding it, but we're not really pulling our fabric through the machines. Those feed dogs are what's helping feed the material through your machine. And what this walking foot does is it allows for a more even feed. So it's going to help you keep that shifty knit fabric from separating. It's going to keep your two pieces together so that you can keep them where you pinned them originally. And this walking foot is going to feed them through the needle much smoother. It really does help. You will be absolutely shocked how useful a walking foot can be in your knit sewing game. Highly recommend finding a walking foot for your machine. And then the last item that I have on my necessary must-have list is kind of a given, but yet some people don't think about it with knit fabric, and that is a steam iron. I think I've mentioned it before, but I have tried a lot of fancy irons. I've tried the Olicios, I've tried Rowentas, and they all just let me down. Within less than a year on all of them, they either break or they start doing funky things with the iron, and I've had to send them all back or just get rid of them. So this is just a Tefal iron. Tefal. Very inexpensive iron. I think it was $20 or $30 at Walmart. I had my mom pick me up this for Christmas one year, and I was on cloud nine to get an iron that was not one of those expensive ones, but still did all the functions very, very well that I needed. And what is so important with an iron in knit garment sewing is the steam factor. I have found that even if you have a wavy seam come out when you're sewing up your knit garments, if you add some steam to that finished garment that you've made, it relaxes your fibers and it just allows the fabric to lie flat. It's like a miracle. I would not be without an iron, a steam iron at that, when I'm sewing any knit garment. It is going to make the difference between the professional finish and the non-professional finish. This guy right here, and it can be very inexpensive, seems very simple and kind of like a no-brainer. But let me tell you, a steam iron makes a world of difference. So that is my needed notions. I need these tools for success. These are the ones that I would not even be sewing knit garments without. All of those are at the ready when I'm sewing a knit garment. Let's talk about a few that are, they are helpful, but they're not entirely necessary. I only have a few on this list, so definitely much shorter than my needed things. But the first one is some stretchy thread. So this one right here is a Gutermann Mariflex thread. My dear friend Agatha in Agatha's Cottage gifted me this spool of Mariflex thread because it's very hard to come by in the US, and she gifted me some, which was so very sweet of her. So that is a stretchy thread. Mariflex is stretchy thread. It's going to allow you to use a straight stitch even if you are sewing stretchy fabric. And then this one is called woolly nylon, and this was suggested to me by Margaret from the University of Sewing. They are a local quilt shop to me here in southern Indiana. They have a YouTube page and a Facebook page. I'll link their information down below. Amazing store, and I went in there frustrated with my knit fabric journey. This was early on, and Margaret suggested putting woolly nylon. Let me get it a little closer. You can kind of see that it's a thicker thread. It is quite thick, it's very soft, and it is indeed, I would call it, woolly. It's definitely more fibrous than regular thread is. She suggested that I put this in my bobbin and see if that would help my knit game out. And I did that for several projects, and I started having success. Now, do I use it all the time now that I'm used to sewing knit projects? No, I don't use it all the time. But at the beginning, when I was trying to get better at my techniques, it definitely was helpful. So Mariflex is going to help you use a regular straight stitch on knit fabric so that it will stretch with movement and wearing. In the same way, your woolly nylon will do the same. Woolly nylon does indeed stretch. To me, these are not necessary. I'm not using these in every single project. It's not a no-go if I don't have these for my projects. So these are definitely very helpful, something that might help you in the beginning, especially in the beginning. If you're just learning to sew with knits, getting yourself some stretchy thread, such as those two examples, might really be beneficial to you. And then the last thing on my not necessary list is probably going to be controversial. I'm going to tell you right now that you do not need a serger. You don't need a serger. You do not need a serger. I have a serger. I actually have two. Right there is one of them. That's my newest one, my Baby Lock Acclaim. Do I love her? Yes. Do I use her with every knit project? Yes, for the most part. But if I did not have a serger, I could still make beautiful knit garments on that baby right there. Right there, my regular sewing machine would do the job just fine. You have a variety of stitch options on your regular sewing machine that is going to allow you to do a beautiful stretch stitch. There's a literal stretch stitch that you can use, or you can use a zigzag stitch. There are so many stitches on your machine. Get your manual out, and it will probably go into great detail, more than you even want to take the time to read, about what stitches can work on knit garments. Don't come after me. But yes, that serger right there is not necessary. Helpful, beloved to me for sure, but if I didn't have her, if she was off to the shop getting worked on, I would not hesitate to pick up a knit project right now and sew it up on my regular sewing machine. So that is some tools for success, some that are absolutely necessary, I'm going to have them at hand all the time, and some that are not as necessary, helpful, but not as necessary. So let me know down in the comments below what you find really helpful in your knit sewing game. Maybe there's some that I don't use yet that would really be beneficial to me. Drop it down in the comments. I love reading your comments and chatting with you down there in the comments section. Give this video a thumbs up if you like this kind of content. This was episode 2 of Sewing with Knits. Hopefully next month will be episode 3, and I think we're going to start looking at some fabric and patterns and pairing those up together. So I hope this series is interesting for you. I hope it's enlightening, inspiring, empowering, all of the big words. I hope it is lighting a little bit of a fire in you to give knits a try if you do not sew with them already. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. It means so very much to me. I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.